So let's talk about a couple of issues with the way I've set up the UV map currently. If you notice, this wall back here is maybe a little more than half the size of this wall here with the windows, but notice it's taking up the same amount of space on the UV map. Same with this door. It's a different size than these other two walls, but it's also taking up the same width, at least on the map. So it doesn't look like our texture, if we lay it down and tile it in Photoshop, it doesn't look like it's going to be the same size on all of the walls. But let's test that. Let's bring in a UV test pattern here into our node editor. But I think instead of using this wall living material, let's use our own material, our own UV test pattern. Do we have one set up yet? I don't think we do. Let's go ahead and create a new material for our UV test pattern. I'll click the plus arrow here. We'll call this UV test. And we'll assign that UV test node to it as well. So I'll press Shift A, Texture, Image, Texture. And let's go ahead and select this UV test pattern that we created some time ago. And we can connect it up here in the node editor. Now we can see it over here because we have texture viewport shading selected. Now we've got a lot of other materials on our objects here. For now, I'm just going to remove all of these, and that will allow us to see it on all of the walls, since that's our only material. Now let's take a look at this. The squares for these two walls don't look too bad. They look almost the same size. But if we come over here, you can see that the squares for this wall here look quite a bit bigger. And that's going to be a problem when we lay down our texture. So if I tab back into edit mode here, these squares are bigger because this UV map is smaller. So if I just select this UV map here and hit S and scaled it up some, you can see I can scale it up until the squares are about the same size. So the problem is that for our textures to be proportional and lay down on the object in the same way, our UV maps are going to have to be proportional to the size of the object in the room here. So how do we do that? Well, we can use that average island scale tool again, just like we did with the couch. So if I hit, say, the B key and border select all of these objects right in here. Now, I'm not going to worry about the backs of the walls here. See, they're still down here, very small. I'm not going to worry about those because we're not going to see those. So now that I have these selected, I can press Control A. Remember down here under the UVs menu, you've got average island scale here that are Control A. So I'll hit Control A, and now it rescales each individual UV island so that they're all proportional to the objects in the room, which allows us to have the texture be all one size, or the checker patterns now are all the same size. And that's what we want. So now what I can do is pack all these in. Let me get these out of the way for just a moment here. Reselect all of these with the B key, and now I can pack them in pressing Control P. And there we go. Now I'd like to rotate them. I'll click this rotate here, and there we go. Now they're all packed in. I can then take these guys and bring them back up, put them up here somewhere out of the way. Now we're using a little bit more of the texture space here in our 0 to 1 space than we were before, with each individual object having its own unique UV map. So now we can export this out to Photoshop. Now, here's a question for you. Now that we've done this, will we have to re-import these walls into Unity? We haven't really re-UV mapped them. We've just rearranged the islands within the UV map. Is that going to be a problem? Well, yes. We are going to need to re-import the walls now that we've changed the UV map. Anytime you change the UV map in any way whatsoever, you need to get that object back over into Unity. The UV map is embedded in with the object. All right, so now that we've exported that UV map, what we can do is we can split these apart again now into their individual objects. So I have them selected. I can tab into edit mode, and with all of these selected, I can press the P key and separate the walls out by loose parts. Now they're all individual walls again, and I can apply their individual materials back to them again. So this is wall living room back, right? So I can come in here and wall living back. I can assign that, create a new material slot, and I can assign that baseboard living back. So I can get those back on there. I can do the same thing over here. This was wall living room left. So I can assign wall living left, and with a new material slot here, assign that baseboard living left. And with this wall, I can assign this the wall windows, and with a new material slot, assign it baseboard windows. And there we go. So now all their original materials are back on them. Let's now go to Photoshop and take a look at how we might texture these walls. Here in Photoshop, I'll go to File, Open, find that wall UV map right in here. I'll call this UVs, and let's find a texture that we want to use. I've got this paper texture here. That looks kind of nice. I think I'm going to try and work with this. It isn't seamless, but I think I can maybe make it work. Let's give it a try. So I'm going to click open here and open that, and there we go. I think if I hit the M key and use Marquee Select here in Photoshop and just select everything up to there, looks like I'm still getting some of these rivets on top. I don't want that, so I will go to my Select menu, use Transform Selection, and I'll pull this transform edge or this selection edge down like this. There we go. I'll hit Enter, and then I'll press Control or Command C to copy, and let's take it back over here now. I'll paste, hit the V key for the move tool. I'll press Command 0 to zoom out. I'll drag this below the UVs so I can see the UVs there, and I'll collapse this down like this. And let's see what we can do here. Let me zoom in a bit. And for this, maybe I can just use it as is like this. Yeah, let's give this a try. I'm going to select this part right here. Get this out of here. So I'll select just this right here. There, and hit the delete key. And then I will select the move tool. I'll press Alt and Shift, and I'll move this up. And then I'm going to spin it all the way around so this faded piece is over here on the corner. Let's give this a try. I'm going to press Shift and click over here on the corner and spin this around like that. And then I'm going to drag it down and kind of put it right against there. Maybe something like this. And I'll also drop that underneath that first one so we have a clean edge there. And now we need to cut it out for the baseboard. So let me hit the M key and make sure that layer is selected. And then I'm going to drag a marquee to there and delete that. So now we have the baseboards we need to deal with. And we just need some sort of wood grain, I think, for that material. Let me see what I have. Let's take a look at these. I've got that wood grain that we looked at earlier that I used on the coffee table, but these, I want something a little darker. Maybe that. That might not be bad. Let's try this. Let's try and use some of this, although we're going to have to duplicate it quite a few times to get it to work. I kind of like it though. All right, let's give it a try. Why not? So I will select all of that and copy it, bring it over here, and let's paste that into there. Hit the V key, and let's scale it down a bit. Now, how big do we want this to be? We could take it like this and duplicate it a few times and see if that works, although we may get some repeating. Maybe something like this. Let's try that. Yeah, I'm going to press Alt and Shift, and let's snap these over and hit the arrow key. Snap this, hit the arrow key, and just tile this over for the rest of the baseboard here. And one more. All right, let's see how that looks. Let's give it a test. Before I clean it up, let's give it a test and see. I'll turn off the UVs. I'll go to File, Export, and Export As. I'll export it as a PNG, and let's give it a try. I'll change this to a C right here for a color map and export. Now if we go back into Blender, so for the wall windows here, I'm going to bring in an image texture and open that up. Go to my textures, walls, and wallpaper color. Let's see how that looks. That looks sufficiently gross. I kind of like it. Now, notice what's happening with the window frames. Why is that happening? Well, it's happening because we have the same materials on the window frames as we do on the wall. If we actually get rid of these and give it a new material for its, and call it maybe window frame, that gets rid of that. Now we can assign that same material to these other windows by choosing the window frames and then selecting this one last. I'll click that and then press Ctrl L, and now we can make the material the same as the last one we selected. So I'll choose Material, and that adds that material to all of those as well. All right, so what we'll do is we'll work on assigning these to the other walls, and in the next video we'll take it all into Unity and see how it looks.